welcoming you to another episode of Common Ground, the policy roundtable where we bring together a panel with diverse views on issues of concern to Newton residents and try to work out some of our differences. For those of you who are new to the program, let me introduce the rules. First, I introduce a topic. Then we go around the table once, with each panelist expressing a viewpoint. I then select the two panelists who disagree the most strongly and ask them to speak directly to one another in hopes of finding some area of agreement. I then give my assessment of how we did it finding common ground, and sometimes I'll put in my 2 cents on the topic. Although today is going to be a little different than our usual format for reasons which will soon become apparent and which we'll discuss in a little bit greater detail further into the show. We have 2 topics today, one dealing with historic preservation and landmarking, the other dealing with the major development that's been known as the Northland Project that will be the subject of a March 3rd citywide vote. And of course, that vote also has implications for future development in Newton, as this may be the mold for other projects if it is a successful approval by the voters on March 3rd. The panel we have to discuss this is a terrific panel with, I think, some of the most impressive credentials of any set of people that we've ever seen around the table. We could spend the whole hour talking about how wonderful these people are. So, but I'm going to try to just hit the highlights because we've got a lot to get to. So to my left is Emily Norton. Emily, welcome back onto the show.
Great to be back, thank you.
Emily was the head of the Sierra Club in Massachusetts and is now Charles River Watershed Association Executive Director, is
Yes.
it? And you have also, and of course you're, a member of the Newton City Council from Ward 2, Newtonville. Yep. And of course a parent of 3 Newton Public School students. Two remain, one is, okay. Okay.
One's in private school.
Oh, okay, right. And any other hats that you wear that you'd like to share with the group?
No, that's a good start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, welcome back to the show and good to see you. George Mansfield, great to see you, George.
Good to see you, Ken.
George and I served for 18 years together, and then of course, George,
Kept
you
serving.
must have been, no, you were here long before me on the city council.
That is true.
The then Board of Aldermen. So you served, what, a total of 22 years, 28
6.
years? 26 years, right. 26, so you beat me by 8. And you were at various times, I know, George, the chair of the Finance Committee, the Land Use Committee, I think the Public Facilities Committee. Basically, you were vice president of the board in, I think, 2 different stretches.
3, under 3 different presidents.
3 different presidents. Mm-hmm. And so, basically, almost every important role in the legislative branch of the city you held.
Almost.
Most of the big ones.
Right.
Anyway, and of course, you've been active in the Newton Conservators and by profession a town planner. So really, like, you've got every qualification possible for these topics. So it's great to have you on the show. And Tariq Lucas.
Ken.
You know, it's a tough acts to follow, right?
Yeah.
But Tariq, you are a member of the Newton Historical Commission?
No,
Newtonville
Historic District Commission.
And formerly a member of the Newtonville Area Council?
Yeah, former, yes, that's right.
So
yes. So now I have the second Thursdays of the month free, although...
that's great. We'll have to have you on more often.
Yes, that's right, yes.
And,
yeah.
And of course, you were also a candidate in the last election for the Newton City Council, and a little bird told me that might happen again someday.
Oh, is that right? Oh, okay. We'll see you in a year. Yeah.
Okay. I just have this sneaking suspicion. We haven't seen the last of the Tariq Lucas name on the ballot in Newton.
I sure hope not.
And professionally, you work in publishing?
Yeah, publishing. I'm still at Harvard University Press over 11 years now.
Wow.
And I'm also the co-chair for the Committee for Responsible Development
on
the Northland Project, which is the no side, but we're going to get into that later on.
We will have a discussion of that,
think so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And last but not least, new City Councilor Julia Maliki. Welcome, Julia. Julia is the Ward Councilor from Ward 3. I should note, every time we have Ward Council, George was a Ward Councilor, so we have 3 of the 4 panelists here are or were ward councilors on the Newton City Council, and all three, everyone at this table, opposed getting rid of ward councilors, which the
course.
voters, in their wisdom,
Agreed with us.
agreed with
Yeah.
us. Hopefully,
Thank you.
but Julia, you have you're a photojournalist.
Still photojournalist. I've been at the Lowell Sun for 31 years. I can't
31
believe I'm still in journalism. But
Wow,
yeah.
I mean that's like
Yes.
most print paper publications. Hardly, they're fading fast. And,
Well, we put a lot of emphasis on local news coverage, and we're still hanging in there.
wow,
Yeah.
that's terrific that there's people
We are
still.
we are owned by a hedge fund,
Yeah.
but that's the way things are going.
So they're hedging their bets.
I think we're all
owned by a hedge
yeah, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, we serve our corporate masters well. We're not,
Oh, we're laughing
Anyway.
even though it's so not funny.
yeah, no, well, it was Robert Heinlein said humor is the reaction to pain, right?
Yeah,
It's better than crying. Stranger in a Strange Land, something like that. When the Jonathan Michael Smith, who was brought up on, you guys have all read Stranger in a Strange Land, right?
No.
Brought up on Mars,
Yeah.
raised on Mars by Martians, and comes to Earth and he doesn't get humor. He doesn't, and then he's at the zoo, and he sees a monkey beating up another monkey, and then the smaller monkey beats up an even smaller monkey, and he starts laughing
Understanding
hysterically,
humans.
and finally he says, I get humor, Anyway,
We missed that one.
yeah, you didn't read
Spock
it?
and
Okay.
Star Trek is the closest analogy I can think of.
Okay, yeah. His, anyway, total aside there. Anyway, let's dive into our first topic, and I'm going to introduce this topic because one of the things we don't have in Newton is really a newspaper anymore. We have something that resembles a newspaper and gets delivered, I think, on Wednesdays, but doesn't have the NEWS component of the word newspaper. It's made out of paper, but there's very little news in it anymore, and I think that's because they don't want to pay for reporters. It's it's some press release from the mayor, some squishy feature on the front, and it doesn't tell you what's going on. They used to have beat reporters, both the Tab and the Graphic used to have reporters at City Hall. So now we have this vacuum filled by bloggers. And the bloggers don't have to be accurate, and and it's a part-time thing. And so you get some, and frankly, the biggest problem is they don't have a journalist's professionalism with respect to not being incredibly nasty. I think journalists are generally expected to have some level of professionalism. You don't find that in the blogosphere, however.
Yeah, you're not saying that about our Newton Tab reporter. Julie Cohen, I think, does as well as she
Well, it
possibly
was one
could.
person, yeah.
Being one person, I think
No,
she
I,
does a good.
I think
yeah.
she does a fabulous job. But when I say there isn't news, there's no opportunity.
Right.
It's not. There used to be several reporters and an editor who was also,
Right.
and it's now, one person cannot write an
Right.
entire news, and you just can't attend the meetings. The meetings,
Right.
for one thing, they go on simultaneously on Wednesday nights.
We can't
Right,
attend all the
yes,
meetings.
exactly.
Right.
Yes.
So, but I'm not saying we don't have a newspaper. I'm saying the level of
Right.
coverage isn't what it used to be, and I'm being a little tongue-in-cheek about it. But that vacuum has been filled to some extent by these blogs, and one of the bloggers, and I think in this pattern of nastiness that one often sees on these blogs, as really, I think in a pretty vitriolic way, attacked Julia Maliki.
I have people saying, "Are you all right?"
Yeah, yeah. I'm not surprised because it's really you got sworn in and you're being attacked now as basically being anti-businesses because you propose. So we have this ordinance in Newton that allows for the landmarking of historically valuable
And this is something
properties.
provided for by state law, and I understand. I think Katie Holmes, our preservation planner, said 6 communities actually use it.
Yeah,
and have established
but
a
I mean,
landmarking
I
ordinance,
was I was elected to the then Board of Aldermen in 1991, and we had it throughout my 18 years through 2009.
But we didn't see it used very much.
Not very much, but
No.
occasionally it was used. There were and there were discussions about whether something was appropriate for landmarking. And so what I understand is when you were elected, when you were sworn in, shortly thereafter, you didn't landmark, but nominated a number of properties in West Newton for preservation as landmarks. And so without repeating the slander, so to speak, in terms of the basic gist of it is you didn't do a good job of reaching out to, and you're doing this just to stop development. was
Well, okay,
basically-
I mean, there's so many misrepresentations. It's hard to like,
Oh, okay.
tick them all off,
Let's
but-
back
okay,
up then.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
what exactly did you do? Why did you do it? And what was the process you used?
Okay, well, and actually, I said during the campaign I was very concerned in particular about the Davis Tavern. I'll show it while it's handy here, as kind of
I think you got the stem right
okay,
there, yeah.
to me, an iconic landmark in West Newton Square, along with, and here's another one, the Robinson Block, not quite as old, but still from the 1800s.
Hang on, let's see.
So,
is that the bottom
sure.
one there? Or is that
So
the-
these are the same building. We have a
Okay.
vintage photo and current photo.
Okay.
Same here.
So the gargoyles got taken off.
And if
the
I
top.
may, butt
Unfortunately,
in,
they
I
lost
think it'd be a
little
good
places.
idea to tell people what buildings they are. The CBS
Yes.
building
So
today.
the
and
CBS building today,
Sweet
and
Tomatoes building.
the Sweet Tomatoes
Right.
building
Right.
at the intersection
I
of
used to live in West
Watertown and
Newton.
Washington Street. Yes.
Yeah.
So I mean,
The Sweet Tomatoes building used to be the Xing Yi building, but sadly they're no longer there.
that was a great restaurant. But so I raised this issue and the whole question of historic preservation and not losing all of our history in the face of the development that's coming along. And I think one of the criticisms of me was that I was nominating a whole lot at once. And I did nominate 7, of which 2 the Historical
7.
Commission.
The way I read it, it sounded like you nominated like every building in West Newton.
No, okay, and I can go through the ones that are still in play. The Historical Commission eliminated 2 as not worthy of further consideration, and I was not optimistic about those, but I included them because they are currently on demolition delay, along with the
Just to be clear, demolition delay
Yeah.
is when something's
Yeah.
historical, preferably preserved
Right.
and old enough, and someone wants to demolish it. The
And-
Historic Commission can say,
Yeah.
we're gonna not let you tear that down right away.
This is what the Historical Commission can do for any building over 50 years old they think is preferably preserved. They can delay it for a year. In the case of actually all of these buildings, because they're either individually listed on the National Register or part of a West Newton Village Historic District contributing buildings, they got 18-month delays. So the 2 that were ruled out, and then the Bresniak-Rodman Funeral Home, are all on demolition delay that
'Cause
expires
that
in
one was not
November.
well. So basically,
Yeah.
you nominated 7,
Yeah.
5 are still under consideration.
Yes.
And you only nominated things that had some actual historical.
that I thought
interest.
had historic value as evidenced by being.
And did you did you talk with? Do other members of the city council agree with you? Are you the only person who thinks these are historically significant?
Some others do, and I guess that will become clear when they vote on whether or not to take away their own
Okay,
power to
so
nominate.
this
Yeah.
is what.
So basically,
what did you do? And then we'll talk about
So
what the city council
all,
is going to vote
all
on.
I
because
all
it
I
is-
did was nominate, and I was criticized for not talking to the building owners first. Well, at least 4 of the buildings, 1 demolition delay has already expired. That's on the former Carly Realty building, which is like the Davis Hotel. It's individually listed on the National Register.
So
that
these
gives it-
are these are already recognized. As
Yes,
historic
so
buildings.
they've been
So the
recognized,
idea that
yes.
you're making up that they're historic, that's
right.
baloney.
And
Now, let me ask you this: what about this argument that you're just doing this to stop development?
absolutely not. You only have to look at the map to show that anyone who thought this would stop development is crazy. I don't intend. My goal is not to
Are there things
stop
being
development,
developed?
and I don't expect to stop
Are there
development.
other properties that are
Well, just-
subject to development that you didn't propose then, or that are?
So many other buildings are not, really of no historic interest. They are kind of good to have. For example, one of the buildings that was just basically approved for demolition without having any delay imposed is the one that the Shepherd and Maudsley Artist Studio is in. So there's all kinds of. In December, the Historical Commission let 6 more buildings go, all between the funeral home and Dunstan Street, and between Washington and
So I'm going to
Watertown
let the other
Street.
panelists into
They're
this
all
in a
gonna
minute,
go.
but I
Yeah.
wanted to say that to me, this sounds like you're being castigated for your doing
Yeah.
your job really well.
And
Can
can I say one more thing, though?
No, let me finish. I'm,
Okay, as long as
okay?
Done
He's
complimenting
complimenting
you.
Yes.
I was
No. Let me finish complimenting you before you jump into this. No, Emily's right.
I'd rather make my own points. Can I make
no,
one more
no,
point?
No, I'm going to finish this point, and I'm going to let the other panelists.
all right.
Then you'll get to make your other
Okay,
points.
okay.
Okay. My other point that I wanted to say when I was so rudely interrupted, no, just kidding, was that. What, I was interrupting? Okay, when I rudely interrupted. One or the other. I don't know. I'm the moderator. I'm allowed to rudely interrupt.
Exactly.
Anyway, when I do it, it's not rude. It's just the part of the format. Anyway, is that those of us who have, in George's case, in my case, and currently serve, I don't think we necessarily did as good a job of identifying historic properties that could have been nominated. I could have done this. I don't know. I mean, I never made this effort, and I think that a new counselor hits the ground running doing this. I think that is worthy of praise, not of the kind of castigation that we're hearing from this blogger. So what I would like to do now is turn to the issue of how this was reacted to by the by certain members of the city council, and this is and you'll get a chance to make whatever points you want to make, Julia. But as I understand it, there's now a proposal pending before the city council that would take away, at least temporarily, the authority of councilors to do what Julia just did. Now, Julia, go ahead, make your point, and then we'll.
Okay,
discuss that.
two things. I think one of the reasons you probably didn't think to nominate things in the past was that in the past the practice was to not nominate things that weren't threatened, and for a long, long time, decades really, nothing was really threatened, and that's kind of the reason for.
But you've been proactive, though.
Right,
You
I'm
didn't
being
wait till
proactive.
things were threatened.
And I would say that the people who have been criticizing me, they're not any more happy with me nominating things that are imminently threatened than they are with me nominating things that are
'cause
not imminently threatened.
It's
Yeah.
pretty transparent, the motivation
Yes,
there, I think.
and the other point I'd like to make is that this is being presented somehow as anti-business, and to me what's really anti-business is, or discouraging of businesses coming into buildings like this, is the idea that you could move in and, in 6 months or a year, you're kicked out because your building is going to be torn down. And to me, I think being a tenant in a landmark building is kind of the most secure you can be if you're a small business in Newton.
Okay, so those are very interesting points. I want to ask the rest of the panel, though, about this issue in the context of there's like lightning. Like, I've never seen the city government react this quickly within, I think, milliseconds of Julia filing these landmarking nominations. There was a proposal rushed onto the docket to take away this authority, not only from city councilors, but as I understand, also from the local historic commissions.
Right.
So I just want to let the panel, now that I've put everything on the table, weigh in on whether the yes or no question is this proposal to take this authority away a good thing? And also, I guess, feel free to comment on what Julia did. Emily?
I support what Julia did. I was at the zoning and planning meeting, and I spoke in favor of what she's trying to do here. And I would just to give people perspective, we've had the law since 1985, and in that time we have 22 buildings that have been landmarked. So this is not something that's been used with any frequency. And I would also point out that this doesn't mean that you can't do development in these areas. It just means incorporate the historic building into a new development. There's a massive skyscraper, basically, that's going in above South Station. We're not going to knock down South Station, this incredibly valuable historic building. They're putting up a skyscraper that I think will look ridiculous, but at least they're keeping South Station. So, so many people, one of the many things that they appreciate about Newton is our historic buildings. If you do any traveling to Florida or Arizona or anywhere that's lots of cookie cutter development, it really makes you come back and appreciate what we have here. So I'm incredibly grateful to Julia for the steps she's taking, and I support her. I don't visit the blogs that I used to because of the vitriol there, so I haven't seen what she's being subject to. So I think that's unfortunate, but I generally think in politics, whether the local level or any level, if I could just finish my point, I just want to say that I think at any level, the more you're attacked, the more effective you're being. So I would take it as a badge of pride if certain people feel like that they need to attack you.
Also, an email from the head of the Chamber of Commerce that I got. These attacks. I mean, this is just real nastiness. Who also happens to be on the blog. So or
That would
blogger.
not surprise me that that individual would be attacking, using personal attacks, having been subject to them from him myself.
So the second part of the question, though, that I'd like you to answer is this proposal to limit the ability of councilors and historic committee members to nominate landmarks.
Yeah,
What
I
do you
think it
of
is
the-
related to the amount of development that is being proposed for West Newton. Certain people do not want any obstacles at all. They don't want to have to incorporate. They don't even have to think about incorporating historic buildings into it. I don't support this. They say a moratorium, but basically what that would do would be give a chance to people to just knock down anything that stands in their way right now. And I don't know how quickly we would act to reform this law that folks are saying that we need to reform. So I don't think this is a good idea. If there are reforms that we should be considering, then let's see those reforms.
Right.
But
And
not
leave
get
the-
rid
leave
of
the current
this.
law in
Leave
effect
the
until
current
then.
law in place.
George, as a planning director, as a former chair of the Newton's Land Use Committee, and of course a city councilor, alderman for 26 years, what do you think about taking this power away from the elected body?
I think it's a big mistake. I think that this is a tool. This is a tool of one of the many, few tools that the state provides. They provide the ability to have demolition delays. This is the only way that a government, a local government, can have control over their historic resources. It's an extreme one. It's only been done 22 times in Newton, but it needs to be there. And I don't understand. I'm hearing much of this for the first time. I've been away for 10 years, not out of Newton, but off the board, and I wasn't aware that the level of at which this was going on. There's no need for a moratorium when you want a moratorium is if you're going to propose something more strict. It sounds like they're going to propose something less strict. You don't need a moratorium
there's
for
no
that.
point in a moratorium.
No, it doesn't make any sense at all.
It doesn't make any sense. And the irony is that the process that they're rushing to take away something, which, as Emily points out, hasn't been used that much, and it's such a rigorous process to get. Just because you nominate something doesn't mean it's going to be landmarked at the end of the day. And I remember
It needs a 3/4 vote from the Historical Commission.
Right, which-
And there's a process. I mean, the two buildings got hearings, which will have the public hearings on Carly, if it's still there. It could be knocked down any day. And the Davis Hotel will be February 27th. And the others was voted to further research them, and then the Historical Commission would decide whether to have a hearing. So it's not an overnight thing. It's not a guarantee.
Well, this is
3/4
exactly
a high
it.
bar.
It's not as though, any one counselor can suddenly say, aha,
Right.
you can't do anything with this. It has to go through a process. You're just putting it into that process. And to George's point, there's no downside to letting people put something into that process, especially if you're talking about liberalizing the process rather than making it more strict. Moratorium would be you don't want them to rush in and do the bad things before the process is changed because they know it's coming. Tariq,
Yeah, if I could just give my 2 cents on this.
you can give 4 if you
I
want.
can have 4 cents.
Yes, right.
Why not a nickel?
Wait, don't push your luck.
Okay. So this idea of taking the power away from the city council to nominate buildings for landmarking is anti-democratic. You're taking the power away from the city council, the legislative branch,
The elected
the elected branch, and giving it more to the mayor and her.
The mayor's elected too,
The mayor's elected. It is
The
the
executive branch, yeah.
yeah. So I think that is anti-democratic.
Well, they're
Another-
also giving it to the Inspectional Services Commission
Inspection
and the planning
ISD,
director. Right?
yeah, and planning director who are not elected. So I don't think that is fair.
And who would never use it anyway.
Yeah,
without the
and
mayor's
exactly,
permission.
and they probably
they wouldn't do it unless
probably,
the mayor
they probably
told them
wouldn't.
to anyway.
And also, just to what Julia is doing, and them attacking you, you're doing a good job if you're being attacked. I just say keep doing what you're doing.
All right, and if folks in the community are concerned about this issue, the City Council is scheduled to vote on this issue, I believe, what did the first meeting
It was
in-
moved to a date certain of March 2nd, I believe, is the first
So the
meeting
day
in-
before Super Tuesday, the day before the local vote on March 3rd on the Northland proposal, there will be a vote of the city council. So if you were interested in maintaining the ability of councilors to nominate historic properties for landmarking in Newton, you could let your city councilor know that by email or phone or other means, knocking on their door, carrier pigeon, whatever you like. Grab them at the
Express.
grocery store, and let them know between now and then, because otherwise it does seem like this is on the extremely fast track to passage, this moratorium and change. With that, shall we proceed to the second topic? All right, now, our second topic tonight is the Northland Project. And as our regular viewers know, whenever we have a question on the ballot, throughout the 15-plus years of the show, we have always had people on both sides of the ballot question, making an exception to that this time for the simple reason that there have been not one, not two, but literally dozens of forums sponsored by the corporation that's pushing this development and its affiliated organizations. I'm talking about that have endorsed the project and have done incredibly one-sided presentations, from the Chamber of Commerce to the League of Women Voters. It's having one tonight. To there have been numerous gatherings, so they are getting their message out. And I would like to have at least one place where the No campaign can articulate. Not that they haven't had some mailers and whatnot, but they're obviously terribly outspent by a company that has a lot of interest in getting this project approved. And so I want to go through the claims that the developer is making. We'll go through them one at a time and just hear the panel's reaction to them. I think I may put my 2 cents. I'm not going to go as high as maybe 3.
3 cents?
Yeah, I might
3
go to 3
cents.
cents.
All right.
As long as they're common sense, right? After we hear from the other panel. So, and I'll just sort of rotate going around. And well, Tariq, you're the co-chair, so maybe I'll let you kick off the first one of these. So the first thing they say is that this project will create affordable housing, and so we should vote for it because there'll be we need more housing in Newton. Anything wrong with that logic? I happen to think there is.
I mean, they are adding affordable housing. I mean, that is a fact. But they are adding the bare minimum of affordable housing. This is the largest development in the history of Newton in terms of the number of apartments. Oh, there was a picture of it. The number of apartments being built, the amount of square footage, which is 1.4 million square feet of development, and they are providing the bare minimum of affordable housing. That's pathetic. They can do better. We can do better. Our elected leaders can do better. No offense, Emily. I think.
And Julia's an elected.
And Julia, yeah, but Julia didn't vote on this one. So
Well, Emily voted against it, though, right?
voted against it. Yes.
So
yeah.
I don't think you're offending Emily.
Okay. All right.
You're gonna have to work harder than that if you
Okay.
want to be offensive.
All right. But yeah.
I'll give you some tips later.
It is. They are providing the bare minimum, and I think that is not right. I think we as a city can and should do better. And a no vote will send it back to us, the community, and maybe we can get a better deal for those 3 parcels of land.
Okay. Anyone else want to weigh in on the affordability of this?
Yeah, I think that Tariq is making a good point. I'll just tell a short story about what happened with the Austin Street project in Newtonville. This was relatively soon when I was elected. So there had been a Joint Area Planning Group, JAPG, which is a sort of stakeholder group.
The city owned the property.
The
was
city
key.
owned the property,
And the
the public parking lot, and there was a group that got together and recommended that 18 units there would be moderate and 30 units would be aggressive
of the housing.
of the housing.
So aggressive meaning 50% of area median income?
Just that number of units. What we ended up with was...
No, but I'm saying the number of units would be for very low income people.
No, maybe I'll just finish.
Okay, sorry, I'm not understanding.
18 units.
Aggressive what? What do you mean aggressive?
In terms of the number
Size.
of
Oh,
units.
okay.
Size.
I didn't know what you meant. You're
Ambitious
saying,
in size.
Oh, okay. I didn't know what you meant by aggressive
So anyway,
units.
I'm just trying to, just kind of give a little
Got it.
narrative here about
She means big.
my first
I
experience.
totally didn't know what you
So
meant by
30 was
aggressive.
aggressive, but we ended up with 68. There were a
Okay.
number of proposals that were offered. We went with one that was a developer who's had some good connections with the city, I'll put it that way. Whereas, and he proposed 17 affordable units.
Out of how many total?
Out of 68. And couldn't afford to do one more, and then Amy Sangiolo, who was a counselor at the time, said that she would not vote for it if he didn't offer 10 more affordable units. They ended up coming up with 6 more affordable units. This is how it works. Private sector developers are in this to make money. It's totally their right. Our job is not to help them make money. Our job is to get the best deal for the city. I am quite confident if we were to push back on the Northland folks,
You could get
if this
lots
does
of
not
affordable
pass,
units.
we would be able to get more affordable units. I am quite confident with a project this size. And I just want to clarify, no one wants to leave it the way it is. I have not talked to one person who wants to leave it the way it is. It is a sea, this
site,
asphalt, sea of asphalt. It is horrible now. So there are many, many good things about this project. I just think by pushing back a bit more, we could get an even better deal. The other thing I'll point out with the Austin Street project, just so people understand the dynamic that happens, the RFP for that, the developer was
Request for a proposal.
the developer was supposed to pay for undergrounding the wires. Instead, the taxpayers paid to underground the wires.
And how much did that cost?
$340,000.
But they're getting the
He got the property
for a song
for $1 million.
for a 100-year lease.
Yes,
Yeah.
so it's more like he got that for $660,000, which, as we know, does not even buy you a tear down in Newton. In addition, when I was expressing some concerns about it, the developer reached out to my day job, to my board at the Sierra Club, and said that I was embarrassing the Sierra Club by not supporting their project.
no,
I
they weren't
assume
the
they were
best
trying to
people.
pressure me. I just want to give people a sense of
What
what
these
it is like
developers
when you are
do.
dealing. In
this is-
contrast,
this is what-
in contrast, there was an affordable nonprofit developer who had proposed a project that was 25 units, 100% affordable, 3 stories. They look like townhouses. I think that would have sailed through, would have had the support of the community. They did not even
But
make the second
Mayor
cut.
Warren didn't let them.
Well, Mayor Warren and a few councilors. So my point is, I think we can get a better deal here when it comes to the affordability.
But wasn't
and
it
some
Mayor
other
Warren's
elements.
decision what to let through? That
There was
part?
a committee as well, but in the end, I believe it was mostly the mayor. Yeah. So
Anybody else want to weigh in on the affordability side?
Well, just one thing. It's that if you, what you have done, you're reading from the supporters of this
Yes.
referendum. They claim that if this isn't passed, it could be something much worse. It could be a 40B. They're saying it could be 3 40Bs. I've never seen that happen side by side. It'd be 1 40B because of economies of scale and the
Right.
way you build things.
Sure.
But if it was a 40B, there'd be 25% affordable
Yep.
in there,
More affordable
not
units.
17, 25.
Not 15, because this is 15 plus. Then they've got they've got 120 units of affordable, and then they've got 20 units to get them from 15 to 17.5% of between 80 and 120%.
Yeah.
Are what they call
So-called workforce.
workforce
Yeah.
housing, but
Workforce
that
housing.
doesn't count
Okay.
towards the 40B standards.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
So this is, this is the bare minimum affordable housing deal the city could get. And what they're getting for the rest of the 660 units are high-end, large, I'm
This
sure.
this is the point I think is critically important. It's not just
Condominiums.
how affordable are the affordable units, but the market rate units
Are
affordability.
exorbitant.
And Emily, this goes back to your Austin Street experience. I remember what you said at the time. You had the audacity to say they were building luxury housing.
Right.
And you remember what people said about that?
including the person we were talking about earlier.
Right, the Chamber of Commerce angry
Yeah.
blogger guy.
Yes.
Accused you, as I recall, of being outrageous and
Right.
just it was so ridiculous. This wouldn't be luxury housing.
What did the banner say outside? Luxury
housing.
units renting.
Yeah.
And it's what it said in their advertising
Right.
and everything else.
Still
That's what this is.
Still does.
And,
Yes.
So
And although they seem to be having some trouble renting them, they are asking as much as over $6,000 for 2-bedroom apartments in
For a
Austin
month
Street.
in
A
rent?
month.
That's
Over
not
6
surprising.
Yeah.
That's not surprising. I've
$6,000 a
recently
month.
had, for other reasons, had to do some research on small rental apartments in Newton. And, I'm talking about the minimum now. 2,000, 2,500 for a 1-bedroom.
well,
In the new construction.
No!
Well, it's cheaper
in
than
houses, you can get an apartment
well,
a lot cheaper.
there-
Oh,
yeah.
you think so?
I know so.
There are
I know
many.
cheaper ones.
Near me, you can rent, and Tariq would know.
Yeah.
Because
In
he lives
houses,
near
yeah.
me, he rents
Yeah.
near me. You can get 1-bedrooms for $1,500. They're not fancy, but they're not disgusting.
Right,
Yeah.
you can get 1-bedrooms
Totally.
for 1,500. They're on the 3rd floor of a walk-up.
Which is
and-
cheaper
which is
than the
fine.
affordable units.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so I just want to add one point to this affordability discussion. I think it's absolutely nonsense to say that this is a significant contribution to Newton's affordability. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to increase the percentage of affordable housing in Newton when you're subsidizing. And this is the biggest subsidy in the history of the city of Newton by allowing this much density bonus. Because the total cost that the city is bearing here in terms of the cost of educating the students and the infrastructure costs and the environmental impacts, this is a massive subsidy to this developer. We could extract so many more affordable units. And by the way, my family, when we moved to the city of Newton, we moved to the Hamlet, which was built by the Newton Community Development Foundation, a nonprofit that partnered with the city, and it was 50% affordable, but even the market rate units were very affordable. And we lived in a market rate unit, not a subsidized unit, but my dad, who was teaching at Framingham State College, and my mom, who was in law school, or just finished law school at the time, who could not have afforded a market rate, and then they were there for a couple of years and then bought the house they still live in. But that was their entry point into Newton, real affordable housing, not the kind of, stuff that they're passing off as affordable housing today. The city has huge leverage here and made zero effort, as I think Emily illustrated by the comparison. That was just one councilor.
Right.
Amy Sangiolini had so much power in that process. A mayor with some backbone could get this to be 30, 40, 50% affordable housing.
I'd want to make one other point, which is that if it is a 40B, with a 40B project, all of the units, the market rate and the affordable ones, count toward Newton's affordability obligation.
And we which helps us get to independence.
Which would make us, safe harbor
Yeah.
from, because right now under the 40B law, if you do not have at least 10% of your units being affordable according to very specific definitions, so just cheap housing that's already in the city doesn't count. Until you get to that 10%, developers can bypass our zoning. To have all of these units, including the market rate ones, count toward that obligation.
Yeah.
I don't have those numbers right in front of me, but we certainly would get to it a lot faster. So that is something.
And could put us in a position to
I think
even meet the
Whereas
10%
this-
after the next
We
census.
Exactly.
were already at like 8.2%. That would get us there. It would
Whereas
absolutely
with
would get us
these,
there.
only the
8.3.
affordable units
8.3.
count.
I think it's around 8.3 in the mayor's newsletter from December.
Right.
She
Did she-
outlined it.
We would definitely pass it
Yeah.
if all 800 units can. There's no doubt.
But I think a lot of people in the city government don't want us to ever meet.
Right. No, they're
Yeah,
doing
safe
everything
harbor.
they can because they like that as a sort of Damocles hanging over us. All right. So that's their first claim, affordable housing. The second thing they say is open space. So there's 750 new trees, almost half the site, 40%. 40% isn't really almost half, but okay, quibble that.
Close.
Is open space. Right? So this is, but basically, and I'll take this together with sustainability, reduction in climate change. This is reducing the impact of climate change. It says at least 3 of the residential buildings will meet the passive house certification, the most stringent energy standard currently used. Well, isn't this a good thing? We're all environmentalists around the table. Wouldn't we want this to be an environmentally sustainable development? Let me, anyone with an environmentalist kind of background? Emily!
So I think many of the environmental attributes of the project are fabulous. The 3 passive house buildings, there's a lot of other conditions that are really wonderful, and they came about because of advocates from Green Newton and the Newton Climate Change Coalition and so forth, really pressuring the developer and working with the developer. So they really do get credit for that. A big negative, though, and I assume you're going to get to it, is the transportation. In general, when you want to have transit-oriented development or density.
Oddly enough, that's not
This
one of
is
their
not-
talking points. This
yeah.
is your chance to talk about
Oh, that is
transportation.
very interesting. I hadn't noticed that. So, this location along Needham Street is really nowhere near a T. Unlike the Riverside project or the projects in Newtonville, at least you can argue that some people would get on public transportation. So what they are offering is, and I bring that up because when people are driving, most of us are driving gasoline vehicles, and even if you're not, you're taking Uber or Lyft, you're getting deliveries. People probably saw the Spotlight series in the Boston Globe a few weeks ago on how our traffic is so terrible now because just in the last 5 years, the number of vehicles has gone up. I'm trying to remember what it was, 30% or 40%. It was an extraordinary number. So.
Well, at least there's no traffic on Needham Street. Though.
Well, that's the
Awesome,
thing. I mean,
isn't
even
it?
aside from the air pollution and
None
so
that
forth,
moves.
just the congestion. And that's why we're seeing people who, especially those who live near it, are so concerned because it's your quality of life if you're stuck in a car all the time. So they're offering shuttles every 10 minutes, and I believe it's even an electric shuttle, which is
Yep,
good, every
that's
10
right.
minutes to the Newton Highland stop. I personally communicated that I would have been more open to voting for this if they had also offered a shuttle to downtown, a shuttle to the seaport. And the reason is, if anyone's taken the Green Line recently,
It's jam-packed.
it is jammed. You're like this. It's also super slow. I live on the north side, so I'm near the commuter rail, which is much faster. Sometimes also jam-packed.
It doesn't run very frequently,
It
too.
does- well, that's
and on the
unfortunately-
weekends, it's a little tough.
Well,
to
even
get
if
in.
that's really just better for commuting hours. So the idea that people would jettison their car to be in Needham Street traffic on this shuttle and then to be waiting on the Green Line to take forever to get into Boston, versus if they had a shuttle that went straight to downtown, straight to the seaport, maybe even straight to points along Route 128 where you had your own seat, you could, with air conditioning, you could be, you know, doing your work. I think that would be a much more attractive alternative and more realistic. So I also think that the developer, in addition to better on affordability, I think they could do a lot better to offer options to people to get out of their cars.
And that
Okay.
was one of the,
Yeah.
that was an original version.
That was.
to
I
have
know.
four
Yes,
different
that
shuttles,
was.
and
Oh,
where
I
did
didn't
that
come up
go?
with this.
Where
Yeah.
did that
It was
go?
their idea.
Yeah.
It was their idea,
Yeah.
and they
and
just
suddenly it disappeared.
took it off, and now then it was a shuttle to Newton Highlands.
It's
for
not
every-
enough.
every-
It's really not enough, and
Yeah.
I'm sure that they could do better.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we have
Well, I'm
to,
sure
we
they took
have
it
to
off
get people out of their
because
cars.
it's a cost.
Yeah.
Well,
It's a bigger cost to take people on that
But
distance.
it's a cost for everyone who lives around there if
Well-
they
Oh,
don't
sure.
offer that.
Yeah.
And on the subject of the shuttle, that as a condition of the special permit, I am very suspicious of conditions of special permits that can be reversed, things that are not sort of built into the project. I mean, we saw what happened with the No Banks at Washington
bank.
Place.
Right.
Building was not even built when
They
they came
decided
in and
they needed to
said,
have
we'd
some
like to
bank.
be able to lease to this bank, and practically
four
the,
votes.
practically
We
the
got
same
four
city
Or no
council
votes on the
Yeah.
ban.
has passed it, reversed it, and if
a
this
future council can
a
say,
future
oh, of
council,
course, because there's
or the
political,
if it's
political
not
pressure.
if it's not used because
Right.
it's too slow, because these other shuttles that the mayor just announced somehow make it redundant. Easy for the developer to come in and say it's not making any sense to
Right.
do this shuttle anymore,
So-
and then
Take
it's
it out.
gone.
So if there's, does anyone else want to weigh in on this environmental thing?
I'd like to make a point.
Okay.
Just recently in the Globe, there was an article about there's a 10-acre parcel. Now it is state-owned, so they're probably getting a deal on the land. But Mayor of Boston seems to be supporting a proposal for a geothermal heating district of only 140 units of housing on 10 acres. And if it seems like if that can be done on 10 acres in Boston, why not a geothermal district on 22 acres in Newton? Much more, forward thinking. And as I said during the campaign, whatever gets built on Northland now, we're stuck with for 40 years. And I'd rather wait a little longer, given that. And we seem to be giving
Just
Northland.
40 years? No.
We seem to be giving Northland credit for improving this empty parking lot when they've had it for at least 30 years. Certainly as long as I've been back in Newton.
Anywhere from 15 to 40 years, they have let that project go to waste. And they have not invested
Various
any.
parts of the property they
Yes,
bought
they
up
have.
various
Yes,
pieces.
I mean obviously the Marshalls was there, and we all shopped at the Marshalls. At least I did.
I did.
Plenty of times. But yeah.
My son still goes to the Taekwondo in that plaza. It's still,
Okay.
we're still using the plaza
Yeah.
there, and as long as it's still there. Let me just make a point on the environmental front. George, did you have something you wanted to
Well,
add?
yeah, on the shuttle, I have a question which I have never gotten an answer to. Is the shuttle, and it reads that it's for residents, visitors, and shoppers, just of this project? Is it going to be point to point, one stop, or is it going to pick up other people along Needham Street? The way to reduce traffic on Needham Street would be to put a shuttle that would pick up and stop at different.
No, I don't think
It's just point A.
Then
point
it's
B.
then it's helpful
Yeah.
only to the
And it
owner of
adds
this
more
property,
vehicles to
not
the
to the
street. Okay.
not to the public.
So here's the point that I want to say. Compared to what is the question here? Yeah, if you're going to put in a new project and it's going to have a certain amount of number of units, a certain number of square feet, then yeah, it's great to make sure it meets the passive house standard. But the question to me is, are you comparing it to? It's not good for the environment if you're adding more trips, more congestion, more air pollution. If you were to say, okay, we're going to take away this thing that's, that's not a passive house standard and we're going to replace it with passive house standard, that's great. But there is no doubt that this adds massively to our carbon footprint. This is not a carbon neutral development.
No.
So the question, to my mind, is when you're looking at this project, how in this day and age, when we should all, as our #1 priority, be concerned about whether we will have a planet that is breathable air for our children and grandchildren, and has and doesn't have, I mean, you don't have to go farther than the West Coast. 2 summers ago when I was visiting my brother in Seattle, and the air was unbreathable due to the particulate matter of the fires. Climate change is happening now. It is a reality. Today, the size of Atlanta, Georgia, a chunk of the ice pack in the Antarctica, broke off. A size of Atlanta, not Atlantis, Atlanta. But I mean, this is a crisis right now, and so we go, oh well, it's better than. No, I mean, we should be planning things that are absolutely going to be as close to carbon neutral as we can. So you ask the question: where you're putting residents here in Newton? Newton has a surplus of residents. People misquote. I believe it was your former organization, the Sierra Club, 10 or 20 years ago said, oh, residential development in city centers is good because there's lots of businesses there. It puts people closer to the businesses. Well, Newton has already got lots of residents. We're overwhelmingly a residential community. So I think about my profession, lawyers. I can't tell you how many lawyers commute from Newton to downtown Boston, to the waterfront district. Wouldn't it be great if we could do like Needham did and be proactive and put some offices in, like they did with a TripAdvisor, and so attract some of those big downtown law firms to this parcel, and then you have people going from Newton. And how much less of a impact is that on it's vastly less carbon being generated by that trip than from Newton Highlands down Needham Street or from Newtonville down to Needham Street than it is heading all the way into Boston. So this is not a sustainable project because it's the distance people travel, not just the number of trips generated. That's a key. The other thing that drives me nuts about this is one of the counselors was obsessed with, we're going to reduce the number of parking spaces, and that will mean fewer vehicle trips. No, it won't.
No.
It will have zero effect on the number because people will still have their cars and they'll be making an economic decision. What will happen inevitably, the next property over is going to become a pay garage, and then you'll add a shuttle trip to the pay garage. There's a garage right now by the PetSmart there, right? That's not very full. So that'll be rented out, and people will be taking a shuttle over to their car, or they'll build a bigger garage there because once people are living there, all those voters are going to demand a parking garage. And either they'll demand it on site or it'll be somewhere else. And then the city council.
Uber and Lyft everywhere. I mean,
Right.
Or they'll park in Upper Falls or Newton Highlands.
They'll park on.
yeah.
They're
They'll
going to have their
park off-site,
cars.
yeah.
They're not going to change the way they live their lives based on.
They're arguing that this will attract people who only want a single car. And maybe that will happen. But to the extent that we want families and people take two working parents who take their kids to different places, I mean, anyone who has kids knows that's really.
Well, I will say just I'm someone who looks at the air quality index numbers every day for Boston, for Newton, for wherever I'm going to visit a city, and 0 to 50 is the green zone, and I can tell you that there is a real the #1 generator of air pollution in places like Newton, and where you're not in the industrial Midwest to the extent that we even have that going on a lot in this country anymore, the heavy industry. It's cars,
Right.
And every morning I drive down Needham Street to take my daughter to her daycare just over the line in Needham, and if you go at all anywhere near rush hour, it is bumper to bumper. And of course, when do residents tend to go? All at the same time. So they say, well, businesses can generate more trips, but they're not. But they're spread out over the course of the day when things aren't as busy. You add all those trips to rush hour, and this is going to be gridlock that will affect the environment and the air that we breathe in a really, really negative way. And of course, once we've set the precedent for this is going to be the standard for other developments in the city. We're talking about an increase in Newton Upper Falls from right now 1,200
1,200, yep.
residential units by 800 more. So we're talking about a 67% increase. Now think about it, if we did that in every village of the city, we would go from around 90,000 people to around 150,000 people. And you might say, Ken, that could never happen. Well, this is precisely what
happening right
they're advocating. I mean, if you listen to, Greg Schwartz voted for every single special permit application that came through the city council. Literally, he was chair of the land use committee, and on his time, he always voted for them. But he occasionally asked some tough questions of the developers, and maybe sometimes they had to reduce the size a little bit in response to his questions. That was not radical enough for some folks. And he got replaced by Alicia Bowman, who's a lovely person, by the way, but who has said that she wants 10,000 more housing units in the city of Newton in the next decade. Well, that's Northland times 12 and a half. We are on a pace now to radically transform Newton, to urbanize Newton, to make Newton essentially into Boston West.
And, and if we had the space in our schools and if people weren't going to be driving everywhere, we could, but what that's going to mean is a ton more cars. So that's why I'm so interested in what we can do to help people get out of their cars for commuting, because you're starting in the same place, you're ending in the same place. I think asking people to get out of their cars to take your kids to the doctor, to go see your friend, to go to a medical appointment, whatever.
Hockey practice.
I mean, it's just really, really hard. But the commuting, that's why I'm so focused on this
that's
shuttle.
exactly
and I really
it.
think that.
But if you could get people, if you could put businesses there, and by the way, that's fabulous for Newton's economy. I believe it was the Blue Ribbon Commission, and also that Mayor Fuller was the vice chair of, but also the commission she subsequently chaired. Both of them said this is the Needham Street corridor through Newton Center is the driving engine of Newton's Newton's business taxable rateables, and that to the extent that we should strive to increase the commercial tax base of the city. Well, this is taking one of the biggest chunks of the commercial tax base of the city and giving it primarily over to residential. A real mixed-use development would have much more commercial in it, and could have more. The irony is, could have more affordable units too, but fewer expensive units.
And it would still be profitable for Northland, for the developer. I mean, let's just be honest.
They're getting a massive subsidy. They would be getting less of subsidy.
Yeah.
Oh, this is the other thing that drives me nuts. I've heard people say is, it hasn't been developed commercially, so why not try? Obviously residential is the only thing that works. No, they're proposing residential because they can make more money with it, and they know that the city council these days, no offense, is basically a rubber stamp for developers.
Right.
I mean, when's the last time the city council voted down a special permit?
You mean a large special permit?
Yeah, a large. I mean, for a big development.
I don't know.
I mean, it's
I
been
can't
a
think of
while.
one.
Yeah, I can't really think of one.
Not during your time on the city
It was
council.
probably while we were on the
Probably
council.
when
Yes.
George and I were.
Yes.
We voted down Stop and Shop
So- I
and
was-
got sued.
Stop and
we
Shop,
we
yeah.
voted down Boston College's second one. We voted unanimously for their first one, and there were a few that we voted against, but most of the time there was a negotiation.
I mean, that's
and
the thing.
things
It's
got-
not you're not usually going to see
Well,
people voting it down because
think
you're going to
that's-
negotiate it on the way and end
Right.
up with something better.
I think one of the things that
But we had a credible threat of voting it down because we sometimes did.
And you get
There's
a better
no,
project that way. That's the thing.
Yeah.
It's not about not wanting something there. It's about wanting the best deal for the city, which I don't think we have.
The
with
other
this.
thing is about being proactive and having a vision for geothermal, as was mentioned. Having a vision for, let's make this a zero carbon footprint project where we've got solar, not solar ready, but everything is going to be solar, and we're going to design it so that it's going to attract people to the site who aren't traveling far. That means more commercial that's serving Newton and people are working at who live in Newton, rather than having people commute downtown and farther away. There's nothing proactive about this. We're waiting for developers to come in and doing whatever the developer wants. And the city councilors are not, I mean, the ones who are advocating this, again, present company accepted, are not being tricky about this. They're being totally upfront. One of the city councilors, the new vice president of the council, recently told, made a statement that this is we live in a free market economy.
Yeah, that's
People
right.
should be able to do what they want to do with their they own the property and they should be able to do what they want. That is not the vision I have as an Elizabeth Warren supporter. I believe that companies should be able to do some things,
Yeah.
but they shouldn't be able to do everything they want.
what you're describing is Houston.
I was going to say, that sounds like zoning, or no
there's
zoning in
no
Texas.
zoning in
Yeah.
Houston, and you can do whatever you want. And in some parts of Houston, it's worked out all right, but in other parts, but Houston is not Newton, or I should say, Newton is not Houston.
And I don't think
We
And
don't
I
want
think-
Newton to become
No.
Houston.
One message I think needs to go out to the voters is that a project like this has not been in front of this city, has not been built in this city,
Well,
ever.
Yeah, and,
And,
yeah.
and that's why we didn't see anything like this in
Well-
our tenure there.
Yeah, well, let me suggest that anyone who is voting in the Democratic primary on March 3rd doesn't share that vision that developers should be able to do whatever they want, a la Houston, Texas. Anyone who's voting in the Democratic primary believes that the government, that their elected officials, should be making judgments about how best to get the best bang for our buck for affordable housing. Should be making judgments about how best to protect our quality of air and our quality of water, and to reduce the city's carbon footprint. And if you believe that, then you shouldn't support the policy that's giving a carte blanche to our local versions of Donald Trump type developers. And you should be, if you're voting for a Democrat in the primary, I'm not saying who people are voting for in the Republican primary. If you're voting for a Democrat in the primary, on that same day, you should be voting no on carte blanche for developers and this project, which is bad for affordable housing, bad for the environment, and bad for our quality of life.
And can I just add something just real quick? Also bad for the
On March 3rd, by the way.
On
Tariq
March
asked
3rd.
me at the beginning of the show
Yeah.
to say March 3rd.
March
How many
3rd.
times have I said March 3rd?
March 3rd. So
Two
just
and a half weeks
yeah.
from now.
Yes,
And just
pretty
also
soon.
that it would also be bad for the people in Upper Falls. One of the, I would say, misinformations about this particular vote is that there were negotiations between the community of Upper Falls and Newton Highlands and Northland. That was true for Riverside and Lower Falls. You've probably all seen the right size Riverside lawn signs, and there were negotiations with the developer on that project. They went from 1.5 million square feet down to 1 million. For this one, there were no negotiations, and
But why is it that the city
they were
can't take
meetings.
a little leadership with a proactive? I mean,
The
why-
councilors from Ward 5 didn't want to do it. It was like that with Riverside with Lenny Gentile, but not for our Ward 5 councilors. They didn't
Lenny
want to.
Gentile did want to be proactive.
He did, yes, but I'm
Well,
talking about the ones.
what I'm saying, what about our planning department?
Didn't
I mean,
happen.
George, you're the town planner in the town of Carlisle.
Mm-hmm.
How many how many planners in your planning department? You. How many planners? Does anyone here know how many planners we have in the city of Newton?
12.
Say, no, I
Half
think it's
dozen?
more like 30.
I think it's.
Oh, it's 30.
Oh, you mean the whole full
Yeah,
staff?
the whole
staff.
I mean
Oh.
professional planners.
Oh,
Oh.
We have. I think last I heard we had 18, but anyway.
Well, maybe it's grown.
They've
Probably
had some
has.
There's
vacancies.
some-
they've
there's
been
They've had some
turnover.
vacancies.
Yeah.
It's more than Carlisle, and Carlisle is much less developed than Newton. And I would guess that they get. I would not guess. I know that more planning gets done in the town of Carlisle by one planner than we do with more than a dozen in the
I
city
mean, in
of
their
Newton.
defense, they are working for, a lot of the mayor and a lot of councilors who do have a vision for a much
Well, I was going
denser
to say
city.
that too. As a urban planner, a local planner,
Such humility. You're not going to take this compliment.
you can work if you work for the city of Newton. You're working for the mayor. You've
Of
got to
course.
do. You've got to do.
Oh no,
what
no,
the
and
mayor-
I'm not blaming the professionals there at all.
I don't
Yeah,
work.
yeah,
I don't work for the town administrator. I don't even work for the board of selectmen, who are the executives of the town. I work for an elected planning board.
Right.
You
An
know,
elected
elected
board.
planning board, and
Wow.
it makes a big difference.
Well, that's an interesting thing for our next charter
Yeah,
conversation.
yeah.
We'll have you all back for that one.
Please.
But my point is simply that it is not physically or mathematically impossible to do the kind of proactive planning that I think we should have in Newton, that I think most people who live here, because people do it in their own lives and their own businesses, they do proactive planning, and they just kind of expect that their government's doing it. But it's not happening in Newton now.
Supposed to be wrapping up.
And yes, we are wrapping up. This is me wrapping up. Let me wrap up by saying thanks to Brian, thanks to Will, thanks to John, thanks to Eric, and thanks to our fabulous panel, Emily, George,
thanks for having
Tariq,
me.
Julia. Thank you to everyone at home for watching. Please vote on March 3rd in the presidential primary And please join us again next time when we try to find just a little bit more common ground.